All right, as we welcome our guests, I request all of you to please settle down as soon as possible. It's the post-lunch session, and it takes us to one of the most important conversations we need to have today in India's AI journey. That's sovereignty. Sovereignty over intelligence itself today. As large language models reshape global power dynamics, the debate is no longer theoretical. The question is, can India build foundational model of its own? And what would it take to do so responsibly? This conversation brings us with an entrepreneurial ambition, with technical realism, examining the infrastructure, the talent, and the strategic choices that are required to build models at national scale. So for this very, very interesting conversation, please welcome Mr. Raghav Aggarwal, co-founder, Fluid AI, on the topic, can India build its own GPT? And he will be in conversation with Mr. Niranjan Narayan Swamy, executive editor for News Republic TV. Big round of applause, please.
Thank you, Raghav, for being with us today. So what is an Indian ChatGPT model?
So, Niranjan, what's interesting is an Indian ChatGPT model today, for almost any consumer and anyone in the room today, is ChatGPT only, right? Because our usage of any pure Indic model out there is not there right now. Let's be honest where we are. Okay. But that doesn't mean that this is going to be the situation in 2 years or 3 years down the line, right? I think a lot of people, especially in India, get very concerned that we don't have our own model. But there's a very interesting memo by Google which says that there really is no moat in the model. Because if you see, when China did its DeepSeek movement, that was an open source model. When Europe does Mixtral, they have an open source version of that. And when all these US guys are competing, Anthropic, Google, etc., they want our model, they want their models exposed to the Indian audience.
Correct.
Because India may be a good software exporter, but it is one of the world's best data exporters. A lot of people get concerned, oh, that's a colonial mindset, we're exporting data. But these models are data hungry. Without data, they don't adapt. And if you don't have the Indian audience on them, you will not have a good model. So I almost look at it alternatively. Yes, we may not have our own model today. We'll have it shortly, maybe a year, 2, 3 years. But even now, we are in a very strong position.
Yeah. What is an Indic model? And how far are we from this Indic model?
So in Indic model, let's break it down, right? India has so many languages, right? Most of the global models have been trained on English and the general internet. And Indian languages have been a small component of that, right? So their training sets are very small on that, right? Now, when we do a general chat, yes, even a global model will perform, a ChatGPT will give you some answers. But when we go to depth, nuance, history, culture, bias, etc., that's when these global models collapse, right? Because they do not suit the Indian mindset. So an Indic model will be largely, firstly, trained on India-specific data, which may not rest in the global internet, not in the public world. It may be resting in specific data sources which need to be annotated, specific audiences, specific populations may need to contribute to it. Secondly, it will be extremely customized to an Indian population's usage of it, right? So linguistically very powerful. The voice will be exactly as if we speak in maybe Hindi, Marathi, etc. So the power in that would be is that the UPI movement, right? Even before UPI existed, you could do a net banking transfer, IMPS, you could have instantaneous money transfers. But it didn't break the barrier because it was not on the phone, right? It was not on the phone. You needed to add a beneficiary. There was a whole journey to it. So even today, anyone sitting in a village can use ChatGPT.
Correct.
But because it is not Indic enough, it's not the way we as Indians react and do business or do live our lives. Those models will not perform.
But it is also prone to manipulation, right?
Correct.
Now, okay, let me ask a question to the audience. How many of you use ChatGPT here? Almost, 60, 70, 80% of them use ChatGPT.
I'm surprised with the other 20%.
I have a few students here from our School of Journalism, and I have a few, I think some of our employees were here as well. You know how we catch them using ChatGPT?
How do you do that?
When you ask them to write a story on the Delhi government, for example, or something in Delhi, and whenever there's a mention of Arvind Kejriwal, still shows up as Chief Minister of Delhi.
Okay.
And one more thing.
Yes.
Donald Trump always shows up as former US president.
Yeah, yeah, because
Right?
the
These are
training set-
biases for some reason.
Yeah.
And you get caught. These are biases, right?
Correct. Yeah, so the challenge is that these models, the training data sets, are largely been defined by Western organizations, right? So they've gone to Western media sources or Western sources of literature, whereas the Indian component in that is a minuscule percentage, right? It's 3, 5, 7%.
Yeah.
So there's a general, it's not only a bias, it's a significant misunderstanding in some sense because they're coming with a very different mindset to the entire game, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about an Indic model, it also does need to, maybe the starting point itself needs to be very Indian data sources, a very Indian contextual understanding of history. Because otherwise, no matter how much we can, so there's a concept called fine tuning, right? You take a global model and you say, okay, I'm now going to expose it to certain data sets which are mine and try to change it. But you're still starting with a raw material that's very out there, right?
Yeah.
So that's why these Indic models and the government spending a lot of money to get them out there could be very, right now it looks theoretical.
How far are we from this model?
I think maybe 1.5 year is when we see first quality outputs come. So I would say we are 2 years away from the ChatGPT movement of a true Indic model developed in India. But that could be transformational.
How challenging is this? I mean, where is all this Indian data, Indian mythology, Indian history? Where is all this going to be fed from? How difficult is this challenge to digitize all of it?
So, credit to the government where it's due, right? I think the Bhashini project has been very interesting, right? Because it didn't just start, it's very exciting to get excited by the sexy piece, right? Which is the model. Oh, we have a beautiful model and all that, right? But there's a data journey, there's a massive data journey at the back. And that's what I think we are building up to that moment where Bhashini has sort of worked, a lot of educational institutes, research institutes like IIT have pushed this forward. And they are going into that historical data. They're saying, can we get folks to annotate that data for us? Can we get folks to move that data from maybe, if it's a book sitting in a library, can it get scanned? Can it get digitalized? Can it move into our data streams? And can we get authentic speakers of the language to sort of contribute voice samples, etc.? So that part of the journey, I feel, is done. It's not complete, but it's done to an extent that a good model can come out.
Okay. So there is a lot of excitement in India. Of course, the government is holding this huge AI summit as well. The government is pushing AI, but we don't really have a model of our own, which is a big problem. Like most big countries have their own model, right? So we are, of course, are an interface industry. Would you say we are an interface industry, which is basically AI industry using already existing global models for their end use, for their business? But are we, how would you see the transformation of India from being an interface AI industry to a model-based AI industry?
So I think, Niranjan, you bring up a great point, right? The concern is that the model is not there. But if you look at the interface, we are leading there, right? So let's break down an AI industry today, right? 3 pieces. GPU layer, right? Designed in the US, and Taiwan manufactures it. India plays a good component there. We are still a good designer of chips, but yes, it's still not our IP, etc. Right? Foundational model layer, we're not there yet, not at least at the global scale. We will play in the Indic world. Whether we play in the global model world, not sure. The third piece, and that space is largely an American-China duopoly as well, is the interface there, right? Is the applications which consume AI. This is the first time, right? Like if you look at the IT revolution, 80s, 90s, we were behind for a significant period of time, right? We didn't have the hardware. It was a very license thing. You would import computers very slowly, hardware, etc. This time we are on par with the world when the AI revolution hit. But we have the most number of engineers, right? We have the most understanding of software development in the world. And if you see, in the SaaS world, India couldn't really make anything that was very, the SaaS softwares, we didn't have got a big global stuff. Maybe you got one Zoho out there. But this time, if you see the explosion of small Indian startups which are saying, I'm using AI to become the global interface for sales, to become the global interface for healthcare, something like a Cure AI, right? There's so many of them that are playing in that space. Because this time, we are at par with the world, but we have the talent to go further than them. So another thing is, a lot of people say, okay, model. But the interface to AI is equally important, right? Let's say when ChatGPT upgraded from ChatGPT 4 to 5.1, it forced an upgrade of the model to you. Were you saying that, oh, now I will, because they upgraded the model, I'm not going to perform on it? No, right? The interface was very important. You were used to ChatGPT in a particular experience. So yes, anytime any Indian AI company uses maybe a global model but becomes the interface for it in sales, in healthcare, in other industries, that's equally important because I can switch the model at the back, right? I can have multi-models. You can even say, okay, for query A, go to model A, query B, go to model B. So then where does the model lie? It gets abstracted away like electricity. The interface becomes king. So that's another play.
Yeah. The reason why I asked you this question and why this is important is I don't know how many of them in the room know the importance of this. For example, okay, growing up, we saw Facebook. The Facebook boom happened. Facebook was created in America, right? But we are the largest market, right? And then you had Twitter. I'm guessing after America, we're the largest market, right? You look at Instagram. Each time the app is created somewhere else, but the market is here, the data is here, right? And the concern is always around the data. But in this case, we don't have a model, but we have the interface. Now, how do you see how big a market is India for these big models?
So let's divide it into two pieces, right? Consumer, right? And consumer, because at least as a consuming nation, we don't have the consumption power to pay for it. It's going to be ad-driven. You see ChatGPT launch those various tiers, right? Go, etc., at much cheaper prices, just like Netflix did it, right? So you're going to get all of this at very cheap rates as a consumer. We'll consume a lot, but
is it going to remain cheap? I'm not sure because I'll tell you. I mean, just from I was talking to you about this 2 years back. AI was nowhere, right? And then we heard of OpenAI.
Correct.
And then we heard of a controversy around OpenAI. And then there was ChatGPT. And then we saw them calling themselves non-profit. Right? And I saw Sam Altman leaving. And then Sam Altman came back. And then they said, we're for profit. And then they said, this is for free. And now they're going to charge people. And now there are going to be ad insertions.
So I don't think IPOs are coming in.
Yeah, so it's not really a CSR sort of a project.
Yeah, so I think that's where it's going to be why are we so big for even a Twitter or a Facebook, etc. Right? Again, our ad dollars, and I think Snapchat CEO talked about that, right? An Indian user is much less valuable than a global American user.
Why is that?
Because there's consumption capability, right? Yeah, if you're going to advertise to an Indian user, he has a various spending pattern, which is much lesser than an American consumers, right? So the challenge that is not, but the thing is our data is valuable because these models train on that data. So if you are going to take 1/6 or 1/5 of humanity and say you are not going to have access to this model, your model is going to be a weaker one for all you know, right? So you're not going to stop exposing your model to us, is at least my hypothesis. But the interesting part is because we built so many applications, it's on the business side, right? We also consume these models in our business applications, right? Whatever software India is making, whether it's a TCS, whether it's Infosys, they are then making these decisions on which global model is going to be used out there, right? So that gives us a seat at the table because finally, if you own the interface layer, you are the decider of the models. You may go for multi-model, model democracy. So that is also another seat at the table we have.
Yeah. Okay. Now, we know there's a lot of money involved, right? The cost and scale, because you need to make investments. So how equipped is India to make those investments to scale up? And what are the challenges as you see it?
So at Fluid, we've been working a lot, we've been working in AI for almost 12 years now, right? And till the last 3 years, we've never worked with an Indian public sector company, right? Because we always said, hey, there's never the budget there, and this is a very bureaucratic thing. What was very interesting to us, in the last year, we have done multiple projects. Sub-$1 million, $1 million plus projects with the public sector. So what we are seeing is there's intent. 2, there is the money power to back this up. And 3, they want to go sovereign on it. So they are spending not just from the perspective of saying, okay, just get a global model and we'll do it on the cloud. GPU layer, foundational model layer, saying, okay, we may not have that right now. Use multiple foundational models, fine-tune them for India, and get them in the business application, right? So India is ready to invest. The government is putting in money, whether the India AI mission, etc. But the challenge is always going to be, is the money directed appropriately? And I think that's where we are going to see sort of the next year or two play out.
Okay. So because you mentioned sovereign foundation model, so do you strongly believe that we should go in for a sovereign foundation model fast or focus on regulating and adapting global ones?
I think both go hand in hand, right? Because now to say that a sovereign model can just emerge out of there, we don't know, right? Because a lot of this is science and technology, law of probabilities. You may get one in the next 3 months. There may be a kid sitting in a garage we don't know about, just like DeepSeek, right? Came out of nowhere. No one expected China to bring something so beautiful out there. They did. So this could come anytime, any minute. But having said that, till then, let's regulate the global ones, right? We don't necessarily need to over-regulate. We don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But there can be certain regulation to ensure that where is our data going? How is it going? How is it being used? How are our users being affected by the biases in these models? Can we at least tell the global players to be a little more cognizant of that? Till then, let's keep on investing on the Indian model side. And Indic models, right? I think that's where Indian companies will only bring Indic models out.
Okay. Now, of course, we spoke about the government's interest in AI. They've kept a large chunk of the budget aside for AI in the last budget. And I'm sure they'll do it in this budget as well. We'll have to wait and watch. What do you think is missing today, or are they doing enough on, let's say, the national AI mission? Do you think the government is lacking somewhere, or they need to speed up something in the AI sector? How do you see the government play a role in the building of this the Indian Indic model?
So I think eventually, if you look at the global players also, right, like the government at most can set up the playground, right? It has to be the players in the field that carried it out, right? If you see what was America's government's contribution to OpenAI, yes, they set up a good education system. They had researchers come in. That's about it. China also, when DeepSeek came out, it's coming out from these labs, etc., which have connection just to the education layer, right? So I feel if the government can empower good research and technology development to happen in the country, we get the talent that can not only go ahead and implement AI at an inference layer, but at a training layer. That's all they can do, right? But they've gone beyond, right? We are doing India AI mission. They're spending on the GPUs. They're trying to create sovereignty, etc. That's all good. But in the end, the raw material is the researchers, is the developers who build these models and take it forward. Right?
Oh, great. Okay, then I'll go to that question now. On the question of talent and brain drain, right? A lot of, in fact, the founding team of OpenAI and the guys who created ChatGPT, there have many Indians on it.
Correct.
Right? And some of the biggest players, of course, we have fantastic talent here. Fluid AI is one example. We have a lot of talent, but many of them choose to go abroad, choose to study abroad, choose to start off there, right? What can the government do to reverse that? Especially in the field of AI, maybe.
So I think it's still, this is a massive capital game, right? If you see the investments, both OpenAI and Anthropic or Google are making, there are billions and billions of dollars that are being spent to train models which may or may not perform, right? But when it comes to India's risk-taking appetite, if there is someone with that kind of mentality that he wants to create a foundational model, not play at the inference or interface layer, but go all in, it's not just about the government giving the capital, right? Because India, there's capital required in so many places, the government can just do that much.
Yeah.
It's about attracting the capital in, right? If you see over the last few years, the soft banks of the world, etc., their investments in India have gone down rather than up, right?
Yeah.
Now, whether that's a part of tax policy, whether that's a part of just getting this capital into the country, we need to sort of incentivize foundational capital coming into the country, right? Otherwise, we are going to have ground-up innovation everywhere. That's happening at a massive scale anyway. But if we want to do foundational stuff, one, yes, let's government direct it, which the government is doing a brilliant job with India AI mission, etc. But I guess the second piece is to get these massive pools of capital which are waiting, which know India has the talent, to somehow attract that back so that the Sam Altmans of India can also invest billions of dollars and do that. Seen some elements of that already, right? Whether it be Google set up the facility in Vizag or with Microsoft's investments, etc. The compute power is coming. So I think we are almost there and the government's on the right track.
Are you hoping for some policy change in the budget on that? Or have you guys put forward that point of view to the government?
I think essentially, yes. As a community of AI enthusiasts or as AI companies, I think everyone's telling the government is that the request is only one, right? Just open the floodgates of capital. Because the risk capital can come to India. India can be the innovator out here.
Yeah.
Very thankful for the government's investments in the India AI mission. I think that's where, and the kind of capacity building the government's doing, right? Hundreds of millions of dollars being spent on the GPU chip layer.
Yeah.
And then the preference for sort of saying, at least in local sourcing contracts, to say, can we use Indic models? Can we use Indian companies to implement this? So that's already happening. I think just the risk capital now needs to come in.
Okay. Speaking about fluid AI, so how does fluid AI fit into this ecosystem? And, how are you guys building a foundational tech apparatus?
So for us, I think what we've done is we've gone up a layer above the foundational layer. We are saying we built the no-code agentic AI layer, So, and that's been allowing us to do multiple use cases, right? So everything from collections to customer support to things like inventory management, right? So for someone like an HPCL, we're doing 24 Gen AI use cases. For a NABARD, we're doing 14 Gen AI use cases. Obviously, the global players, it's about 40, 50 agents, right? So what we've done is we've abstracted away all the complexity of launching an AI agent. We've said the models can rest beneath, and we work with both global Indian players, open source models, etc. And at the top, our customers then get an agentic platform to play with, right?
In fact, you spoke about you creating an AI avatar of Warren Buffett. You want to talk about it? Because recently what struck most of us is we had this debate, Arnab versus AI. Okay, fantastic debate. Because what was fascinating is how AI was responding to, let's say, an Aravali issue.
Correct.
Right? Because these are questions where biases / policy comes into play.
True.
And that was a testing question, which I felt was interesting, the kind of responses that came in. So I'll get to that. But tell me a little bit about your, this AI avatar of Warren Buffett and what kind of, patents that you guys are getting into now.
So that was a very interesting aspect, right? For the 100-year anniversary of Forbes, they had Warren Buffett on the cover. And they said, typically an interview happens like this, right? A journalist asking questions, but they said, Warren is such a known personality. Can each reader ask him his own questions? So we created this AI avatar. This is way back in 2017, 18, wherein we trained it on all of Warren's books, his interviews, his letters. And it performed as a Warren itself. So you could ask him about marriage, you could ask him about Bitcoin, you could ask him his opinion on Trump, etc. And it would answer as a Warren itself. And I remember showing it to Warren himself and saying, hey, we've created this. And he tested it out. And he said, at the end of it, he said, hey, you made me immortal. And to hear it from the great man, the Oracle of Omaha himself, to say that this is a technology that enabled him to sort of say, anyone can now have a one-on-one conversation, right?
Yeah.
And if you see Arnab versus AI, the same thing, right? In terms of you have a debate, not just with one individual, you have it with a conscious, right? Because the AI is a stream of thousands and thousands of data sources that have sort of learned from. And he's debating with a personality like Arnab. So I think what it does is it really democratizes the ability, right? Now a student wants to ask Warren about how he learned. Yeah. Whereas someone in his 70s wants to ask Warren about maybe, how he's so productive in his later years.
Yes.
Each of them could have that conversation.
Correct. Yeah. Now, there was this fear that AI would take away jobs.
Yeah.
Maybe it has impacted a few sectors, but largely in our field, I don't see much of an impact. In fact, AI is an enabler.
Correct.
So much so that we have to sometimes tell our journalists in the newsroom, please stop using AI, to write scripts or to people use it as a search engine. I didn't know that is so crazy.
It's the default search engine.
Yeah, my point is it's an enabler.
Correct.
It's not really taking away jobs, at least. So how do you see AI enable, Indians going ahead?
So I think one thing is there about India is that we were very entrepreneurial as a society, right? Yeah. We've always been a society where there have been entrepreneurs everywhere. The challenge is as we became more formalized as an economy, the challenge became that where do you get so much talent to sort of perform for you? I think with AI agents, which are you're becoming an orchestrator of your life, right? You have an agent for sales, you have an agent for marketing, you have an agent for HR, right?
Yeah.
So this is going to get India back into that entrepreneurial future because now, an 18-year-old with a great idea, he doesn't need to build a team of 40, 50 people. Maybe 6, 7 of them come together. They say, hey, we use all these different AI agents to get things done. Yeah. But they can be a smaller company, but there'll be thousands of such smaller companies. Whereas earlier we have only one behemoth of 100, right?
Yeah.
So this is the opportunity we have as a nation to use this entrepreneurial talent to give them these agents to empower them, right?
Yeah. Okay, so my last question to you. So if India has to build its own ChatGPT, what are the 5 things we need to do as a country?
One is talent, right? I think we need to ensure that the talent is there because this is a talent game, right? One part is the talent we need to grow, and one part is the talent we may need to bring back, maybe with incentives, etc.
Okay.
2, why will this talent come back? Capital, right? They need the risk capital that needs to come into this, right?
Yeah.
3, we need to have appropriate regulation, right? Not over-regulate this, but not under-regulate it either, right? There needs to be sort of that balance, which I think the government's trying to set up.
Yeah.
4, I think, is we need to let this give it time, right? This is a journey we are on with the rest of the world. Yeah. We cannot get overexcited by saying, oh, we don't have a model yet. We're dependent on China and the USA. Yes, there is some dependence, but there's dependence on us in other areas as well. Our talent also drives a lot. Our data drives them. So patience is needed. This is a 2 to 3, 5 year decadal game. We'll do that. 5 is unique approaches, right? I think reasoning models, right? A lot of obsession right now is with large language models, which in 22 changed the game. But small reasoning models, and there's a lot of theoretical paper, I won't bore your viewers with that, which say that there are step change. It's not a linear game wherein you evolve from an LLM into a reasoning model, right? They're almost an alternate path, which are multi-factor more intelligent. So maybe India doesn't necessarily need to play the large language model game. It needs to play the reasoning model game. Okay. That's where our investments need to go. So we can be very innovative there as well.
And you're saying all of this is possible in the next 1.5 years?
Indic-wise, yes. Maybe on a global model, maybe it may take 3-5 years. Okay. But yes, a good, stable Indic model which is used across languages, definitely one.
Okay, my really last question. How big is AI, how much more is the AI industry projected to grow in India, let's say, over the next 1 year?
I think there really is no answer to that, Niranjan. I think everything is AI. I think now to say that there's a non-AI and an AI economy, that question does not exist, right? Any field, agriculture, industry, manufacturing, banking, insurance, everything is AI enabled in some sense, right? What percentage of AI is there in that part? That's going to be a question mark. Eventually, it will be a massive percentage of any industry. And service industry even more so, right? You're seeing it in media, right? AI generating scripts, enabling our journalists to be more productive, all of that. So I wouldn't say there is a number that the AI economy grows to. It's a percentage that it grows to, right? So it's 30%, 50% of the real economy in the next 10, 12 years.
It's fantastic. Thank you for speaking to us, Raghav Aggarwal.
Thank you, Niranjan.
Well, thanks so much, Niranjan and Mr. Aggarwal, but I request you all please stay by and we will be just handing over a token of appreciation as we will be moving on to the next session. Thank you so much. And with that,